Well, as it got to the point where they were going to go into rehearsal, because they did have enough money to conduct auditions, they were $28,000 short. And so Abbott said, I'll split the cost. I'll put in $12,000 or $14,000. I can't do math. And my wife can vouch for that too. And so he put up half of the 28, and then members of the cast would put in $1,000 or $500 or whatever for a small percentage of the profits if Pajama Game was profitable. So I think it's really cool as a cast member back in those days that you had a chance to maybe risk a little bit of your money in return for a percentage that may come back to you. Well, as we saw with over 1,000 performances, Pajama Game was a huge hit. And also to cut costs down, since Harold Prince and Robert Griffith were stage managers, they were stage managers for the Pajama Game. And they didn't see the show out front until 14 weeks after it opened and Pajama Game began turning a profit. And the other thing that's really interesting is this is way before the era of telecharge. There were two ways that you could get tickets to Broadway shows. Go to the box office or send in a mail order, give them 3 or 4 dates that you wanted to come see the show, and they would sell you tickets for one of those dates. Well, the great thing about Pajama Game was the day after it opened and the reviews came out, there were close to 400 people in line at the box office buying tickets, which again helped the advance and show that this show is going to have legs. So let's talk a little bit about the cast of the Pajama Game. Probably the biggest name in the cast was John Raitt, who was a protege of Rodgers and Hammerstein. He was the first Curly McLean that replaced Alfred Drake on Broadway in Oklahoma. And then when Rodgers and Hammerstein were writing their next show, Carousel, Raitt was cast as Billy Bigelow and originated the role. And so he had some clout, he had some name. And the other funny thing, if we talk about him, his other claim to fame was he was the father of Bonnie Raitt, who's had some great hit songs in a totally different genre than musical comedy. Janice Page was the female lead, and she had come from Hollywood, and they auditioned her and decided, even not having a lot of stage experience, that she had the kind of spunk that they needed for the part. Eddie Foy Jr. came from the world of vaudeville. There actually was an MGM musical called The Seven Little Foys, and Eddie was one of the little foys. And so they wrote the time study guy, Hines, and he was able to really get good reviews for that and really make the part memorable and funny. Then we have the story of Carol Haney, who played Gladys, And I know you guys just watched the Pajama Game movie. She's the one that's center stage in Steam Heat. And she was a dancer, and she actually started out in a different role. She played the role of Poopsie. And how many musicals do you know that have a character named Poopsie? But she was stealing every scene. And here's another name you should know, Charlotte Rae. A lot of people only know her from The Facts of Life. But she did several Broadway musicals in her career. And she was playing the part of Gladys. Well, she got let go because she was upstaged by Carol Haney, who was perfect for the part. And so there's broken hearts on Broadway all the time. But during the initial part of the run, Haney was out for several weeks and replaced by her understudy, Shirley MacLaine. And the story and rumor has it that there happened to be a talent scout in the audience the night that she went on. Well, she went on several nights. And that's false, because Shirley MacLaine's brother is Warren Beatty, who had ties to Hollywood. So he called his friend, the producer Hal B. Wallace, who eventually produced a lot of the Elvis films, among others. And he came to see Shirley and discovered her. And so she got a contract, went out to Hollywood, and the first big role that she had was in an Alfred Hitchcock film, The Trouble with Harry. So she left the Pajama Game for greener pastures, and she became the star, and if we can say the wacko that she became, all of her characteristics, but she was part of the Pajama Game. So let me talk a little bit more about what makes the Pajama Game unique, especially in 1954. It's about a labor union and a strike. And that was pretty serious material for a musical back then. Now, it wasn't without precedent, because in the 30s, there was a review put on by the labor union called Pins and Needles. It had a score by Harold Rome, who did several other Broadway musicals, Fanny, I Could Get It For You Wholesale, Destiny Rise Again, and people just weren't really lining up to see a musical about labor. And it was right in the era of McCarthy and the witch hunt, and tracking down people and saying that people that were members of labor unions were communists, and quite a different time. But Pajama Game became a hit despite its subject matter. And it's just really a fun show. The other thing that really distinguishes it, it wasn't the romance that was the center of the piece, because Sid is the superintendent of the factory, and Babe, the female lead, is the grievance committee and has ties to the union. So even in this fun song, I'm Not at All in Love, that she's declaring that she doesn't have any feelings for this guy, their romance develops. But she's quite a bit of a feminist for 1954. She's got spunk, she stands up to him, they're equals, and I think you'll see in the way that our production portrays those two characters that that's every bit as true.